This is the first design dialogue session of 2025, and the format is a little bit different today. I won't be presenting, but I do have a list of panelists that are with me so that we can talk about outdoor lighting. So as a little anecdote, I personally discovered how much lighting can affect a project. I redid my kitchen, my indoor kitchen 2 years ago. And only last weekend did I finally put in my under cabinet lighting. And I cannot tell you what a difference it has made to my project. So I feel like I have a new appreciation for lighting in general. And I really think that outdoor lighting in particular can make such a big impact on a project. So I'm excited to hear what everybody has to say today. Like I said, today's topic is lighting outdoors. We do have 3 individual panelists who have a variety of different expertise that I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment. But the idea behind the panelists today is so that we can understand the importance of outdoor lighting, we can discover some of the benefits, and we can obviously learn from lighting experts who we have here. So let's get into it. We have Nick, Gyles, and Diana. I'll let them each talk a little bit about themselves. So Nick, if you want to go first and give us a little intro into who you are.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Surgis. I'm the owner of Nightlight Landscape Illumination. We're based out of Chicago, handle the whole Chicagoland area, and wherever our clients will drag us, anywhere from Southern California to Nantucket Island, we've done. So about me, myself, I started with the company as a entry-level ditch digger way back when, 23 years ago, and kind of put myself through all the ranks and did the management. Got into sales about 5 years ago, sales and design, and then I purchased the company 2 years ago.
Pretty good ladder you've got there, right from the beginning up until 2 years ago. Gyles, do you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Gyles Thornely. I'm the owner of Connect One Design. We are landscape architects and land planners, and we are based out of Basalt, Colorado, which is very near a little town called Aspen. And yeah, I've been here for 25 years. I came here from doing a master's degree in Scotland. And yeah, we're very fortunate to be able to work on some incredible properties here in the Colorado region. We do work in Arizona, Utah, Colorado, but just about wherever we need to. Also got some work in the Caribbean, and was very lucky to meet Ashley at the IBS show in Las Vegas about 3 years ago. And
I think so.
have loved working with Urban Bonfire and Kalamazoo ever since. So yeah, very lucky to and happy to be on here.
Thanks, Gyles. And Diana, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Diana Mesh. I am a regional sales manager with Selux Lighting. Selux is a manufacturer of indoor and outdoor lighting equipment, but I should say that it's more for the commercial world. Larger scale applications, not so much small gardens, but transportation spaces, walkways on campuses, lots of external lighting applications people don't even think of until they do a project, and then they realize they have to surround the building with lighting or find a path to the building. So my job is really to call on people like landscape architects and interior designers and architects and help them understand the possibilities, which are pretty endless these days, for outdoor lighting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diana. I'll introduce myself as well. Ashley Smith. I am the Director of Architect and Designer Partnerships here at Plana Group. For those who have just joined, I've seen a few people who have just kind of come on here. So this is the Design Dialogue series. We're covering outdoor lighting today. So we're just going to get started. We'll get right into the question. Here we go. So the first question I'm going to pose to all of you, the question is, what is the most important item or aspect designers and homeowners should consider when they're thinking through outdoor lighting? Gyles, I'm going to start with you if you want to answer that one first.
The most important thing, I mean, it's quite regional, and it's quite code driven where I'm at, but not to overdo it. Really not to overdo the lighting and Vegasify if that's a word. So illuminating all the stair treads, illuminating all and washing all the surfaces is just a no-no. It's a very special sprinkle of lighting that is in very targeted places is what I try and tell my clients. It's just like, we're not trying to illuminate the world. We start with code. And so whatever you need to meet from a minimum code requirement, there's 1 foot candle for a change of elevation. And so each tread step needs 1 foot candle, which is very little light. So it's very subtle light. These images in the background here are a perfect example of that. So we get through those hurdles, and then there's actually very little left in our code around here to illuminate anything from a sort of luxury perspective. So we really target, egress points, doors, areas you need to leave, and steps and changes in elevations. And then pathway lighting is usually what we come into next. But it's, very subtle, very, very subtle.
I saw Nick nodding along there, so I'm going to let him go next. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Nick?
Oh, I totally agree, Giles. I always tell folks when I'm doing my first discovery on design is that lighting is just an art form in general. So many contractors and designers out there do what Giles just said not to do, which is light everything. I always say if everything's lit, nothing's lit. We're here to light the features of the place, the areas that they're going to spend their most time, the things that they care about, where they're spending their money. I think many folks, you can get in the first couple minutes, you can find out whether they like a lot of lighting or not, and your whole goal is to pull them back and scale them back. I always tell folks we can always add things on. Let's start minimal, build from the foundation out, and I like to make them become the professional. Say, Nick, I love what you did over here. We're going to do some new areas over here, and I'd like you to address that. So really, it's just getting that discovery down and finding out what the client wants, because there are so many different applications. And I may like modern art, you may not, and that's the same way lighting goes.
It is a little bit subjective at the end of the day, and depending what people want to prioritize, beyond just the safety lighting, which I think is what Giles had kind of focused on the most. Diana, did you want to add anything? Is there anything else that, especially from the maybe commercial, larger scale side, that people should consider?
Yeah, well, the rules are kind of the same in that I guess you start out with what's required. Like, as Giles says, there are codes. When you get into outdoor lighting, there are very definite codes. And so there's interior, we would call that, what's the task? What's the task lighting that we need to accomplish? But then the second part of this is, what's the experience? What do you want the experience of this outdoor space to be like? And what's very tough about outdoor lighting is you don't have the interreflectance and the bounce light, let's say, that you would have inside an interior space. Meaning, if you light a wall inside a space, it could help light the entire room. Outdoor lighting's trickier. The light travels and lands a little differently. And the contrast issues are very, very different. So where we talk about 1 foot candle outside, that's enough. You can see the human eye is pretty amazing. In New York City, the requirement for sidewalks is 2 foot candles. But just to give you an idea, these days, retail lighting stores are lit to about 85 foot candles ambient. So it's working with very different outputs. And I think often it's true, people that are not well versed in how to use the equipment or apply lighting tend to overlight, and that's why you'll drive by somebody's house and there's this horrible floodlight, aiming out at everybody, because they're not understanding that at night against a dark sky, your contrast issues are very, very different. So it's challenging in a very different way than interior lighting, but technology has made so many things possible. But I think both of my panelists here are correct. Restraint is still a good thing to use. I'm a little personally tired of the color changing that we see everywhere. And so those are just some guidelines, but the scale and the contrast issues outside are quite different. And I would say to people, get help, look for help, get advice. Don't try to just fake it. Get some help.
I think that's great advice. I think just after this first question, I have already learned. So I'm thankful for that. Hopefully everybody else is too. Nick, I'm going to direct the next question to you just because you've been in the industry and in the installation side for so long as well. What is often overlooked? If there was one or two things that you could say, make sure that you consider this, what would you say those are?
Yes, so my predecessor and my mentor wrote an article that said, I wish somebody would have taught me about landscape lighting before I did my landscaping. And a lot of that has to do with on the op side is proper sleeving, the chase is getting to the right areas. Again, like I said before, we don't want to sell them this full complete package that turns on at night and blows them out of the water. So if we can do that in phases, we can, but that has to be planned for. You can't add an outlet in your house by tearing up drywall and whatnot. So a lot of it when it comes to the production side, I would just say that pre-planning. Lighting is almost always an afterthought. It's almost always the last person in when it comes to the actual landscape. So it is quite easy to overlook those items, especially in the pre-planning sessions.
We've come across that on the outdoor kitchen side too, people not having the gas line where they wanted to put their barbecue as an example. So that's something that's familiar to me, but it's true that lighting it's the same. You still need to get something out to probably a remote area that is going to need to be illuminated. So planning in advance, definitely important. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, when it comes to design, a lot of the folks will overlook some of the, like I talked about either earlier, some of the things the people spend their most money on or where they're going to spend their most time. I often come across plans where there are lighting paths on both sides of the houses and such, and it's new builds, and I'm like, you haven't even lived here yet, and you don't know how you're using this property. So for me to pull up a full design right now and make this thing your own is almost impossible because you don't know how you're using this property. So again, when it comes to the design, it's identifying what's the most important thing to them. And I think a lot of folks just go with the splatter effect and they're lighting and putting a light every 10 feet or so and everything's lit. And then again, like I said, nothing's really lit.
I think that's going to stick with everybody. If you light everything, you're lighting nothing. That's the takeaway. Giles, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, from a landscape architect's perspective, I always think of irrigation design and lighting design as pretty similar. You can really over irrigate unnecessarily, waste a lot of water. And the same goes for lighting. If you don't really plan it out and you're just plopping down fixtures, oh, I'm just filling in the gaps here, there, and everywhere, you can waste a lot of electricity and pollute the night sky pretty easily just because you're completely overdoing it. It's just like irrigation. You just don't need to overwater. Get some help. There's probably lots of free help you can get out there and look at it from a plan level. Plan it out.
Yeah. Preparation is key. Diana, the next question I'm going to direct to you. You've already answered it a little bit, so if you want to add something, feel free, but it's how does indoor lighting primarily differ from outdoor lighting? You did mention in terms of having those surfaces that reflect the lighting. Maybe if you want to talk about, I don't know, different types of materials or if there's other considerations that people should keep in mind when indoor versus outdoor.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, placement of light is always tricky for people because people tend to think in terms of placement of the fixture, but you really have to think about where's the light landing. And people always say to me, what do you mean by that? Well, I could have a fixture that's high up in a tree, but you don't really know it's there until the light falls on the pavement or the tree below. So it's about where does the light have to land? And in outdoor lighting, that's really critical because, as I said, it's not going to bounce around and land all different ways. It's going to land where you've placed the illumination. So that's one thing. Equipment really needs to be robust for outdoor environments. I found this out the hard way with my own house. It's lighting out. Exterior lighting can be expensive because it has to withstand all the elements. It has to, put up with a weed whacker coming by the fixtures, or a snowstorm, super hot temperatures in the summer that might melt an LED board. It's money well spent to buy good quality. I would say buy less equipment and buy good quality equipment, because as my panelists will agree, one of the big expenses in outdoor lighting is trenching the wires for it, getting the power to where you need to get it. Like on my own property, I wish I had more lighting, but one of the things that's stopping me is I've got to get wires, 300 feet away, and that involves labor and it's expensive. So, so once you do put in that labor and you do place your lighting, you want to know that your materials are going to last. So you have to look at very sturdy materials. I would say not plastics. You want to go for good gauge aluminum equipment, but this is where you have to consult with either your lighting consultant or your manufacturer, find out what the warranty is. The other thing that's going on in the LED industry is there are a lot of inexpensive LED fixtures, but when the LED fails or the driver fails, you have to throw the whole piece of equipment away. And sometimes people will still do that because they feel, well, it's still less money and they can't afford better equipment. But better equipment should be designed so that parts can be replaced. So for example, like if you have outdoor column fixtures, like in some of the pictures that have been going by, you want to know these are expensive fixtures. You want to know that if the LED should fail, that they can be replaced on site. So I guess that's some of the things I would talk about. And then color temperature is, I think, even trickier outside because inside people will say, yeah, I kind of want a neutral white color. Outdoors, you might want to play more with much warmer feel so that things simulate a fire, or you might want to go more cooler light so it simulates moonlight. This is where you get into subjective ideas about what you think is right for your property. So you do have to have some knowledge of color temperature and again, the experience. What do you want to create? Is it an intimate experience as you find your path up to the doorway, or is it much bigger and you're announcing, the path with bright light? And when you get into commercial spaces, it's also governed by things like dark sky regulations, code about uniformities, meaning like I can't have a fixture that underneath it's got 10-foot candles and then 15 feet away it drops to 0. And this is where you get into local governments and towns sometimes also have ordinances that have to be followed. So again, you need to get some help. It's because also outdoor lighting tends to be expensive, and you don't want to make expensive mistakes.
Yeah, that's true. You want to do it once. You don't want to have to do it again. Nick, do you want to add in terms of different materials? Diana had started talking about that. If there's anything that you in particular look for in regards to specifications or materials or anything when you're sourcing outdoor lighting.
I think Diana hit on the head with a lot of those points. Having a quality fixture that's either cast aluminum or brass or copper or something that's going to take the elements. When LED first started, I think they were testing all these things in Arizona or in some controlled lab. And then most of us that live in these cold weather environments found out what the strobing effect would happen once it got cold and you're driving down the street and there's lights strobing and whatnot everywhere. We use mainly bronze or brass fixtures now. The fixture catalogs have opened up enormously to where there are several quality manufacturers that are making different types of fixtures. We typically design so that the fixtures more or less disappear into the landscape. I don't want them noticing those during the day as much. It should be the star at night. And then what can't be overlooked when it comes to the actual installation is what you're using for wire, how far are you burying that wire down? Many folks have experienced the nightmare of they're getting their beds cut and all of a sudden all their lines are cut as well because they're just making those lines disappear. We usually recommend getting even our direct burial lines at least 8 inches down so it'll avoid any kind of rotational plantings and whatnot. I mean, if you're going to plant a new spruce tree or something like that, you're probably going to get one of our lines, but we should be able to sustain when the annuals are being planted and whatnot. So that's a big thing when it comes to having the right materials. The last thing I'll add is just mount them properly. Path lights and uplights, especially in these cold areas, they want to be ejected from that ground. The earth does not want them in there, and it will start to push those things out almost immediately. Our company uses PVC, 2-inch PVC that's about 16 inches long, and we drive that into the ground. I call it semi-permanent. You can't go out there and move it if you want to. The typical homeowner can't, but it's not going to also have these path lights where you go walking up and the path lights are all over the place. So some of that's just picking the right installation materials outside of the fixtures as well.
Sure. And that depends from one climate to another, I would imagine as well.
Absolutely.
Well,
To touch on Diana's point about the color lighting too, that's how we design, Diana. You know, we believe warm white. And if there's one thing overlooked, everybody on this call, make sure you talk about color temperature with the client, because people have differing opinions on what color they want. They hear LED, and so many folks still think of the 1997 Audi with the bright, cool white lights. Then they hear LED and they're like, oh my God, I don't want LED. We tend to use warmer colors on our architectural features, paths, walls, fountains and whatnot. As we get into some more of the plant life and some of these pictures, you'll see more of a neutral light that's going to allow that the greens to be green and seen in their natural state. And then, like Diana said, a lot of our cool white, especially in this picture right now, everything that's on that wall is coming from up on top of those big old trees right there, and they're coming down with a cooler white that's probably about 5,500 typically is what we'll use. But ask about that. Definitely have that conversation about color temperature, because you don't want to have to go and have that conversation after everything's installed.
I imagine that would be a bit difficult. Yeah,
Do you
Giles, did you
guys,
want to add something?
do you guys see any fluctuation in material costs between brass, copper, and aluminum? I know aluminum prices seem to fluctuate very, very. It's a very unsteady price. Are you seeing anything like that with the copper and brass market?
Diana, please, if you'd like to answer that, or if you got some feedback.
Well, we don't deal as much in copper. I mean, we have copper components, but not so much the outer shell of our fixtures. But yeah, copper is very costly. Materials have gone up. All the metals have gone up, and sometimes there's even a scarcity. And so that's a tricky part. But I would say that I would still choose what I wanted for the project based on what's best for getting the job done. I wouldn't worry so much about the cost of the material. Just pick, like cast aluminum serves the function that it's very sturdy. Some people will like copper because they want it to age a certain way and blend into the landscape. I mean, I would say that look at that more than just like, I'm going to choose this one versus this one because of cost. Start with what you want.
Copper does skyrocket. It's a commodity essentially, and just like the steel, a lot of we do electrical as well. That underground conduit has just absolutely skyrocketed the last couple of years. Where I actually looked at it again the other day, and I'm like, do I have to adjust my prices? It's some of that you can't be so reactive to as well, knowing that it is going to go back and forth a little bit. I think as a company, you gotta find where that sweet spot is where you can make some money, but you're also not confusing your estimators so much by changing fixture costs all the time. So it bounces around a bit, especially for the wiring itself. It surprises me every time I get a new invoice, and it's 3 times as what it was before. So
A little bit harder to plan for, but kind of the reality of the outdoor world, because you're limited in the materials that you can use. So
COVID did that with everything. I think we weren't, we got hit just as hard as anybody else when it came to COVID. Everybody used all that copper and steel up building all sorts of things. So it became more costly for sure.
I think it's the old rule of you get what you pay for in lighting, just like anything else. I mean, it's something else that's we didn't really touch on is something called color rendering index, because you can have 2 warm colored LEDs, but one will make the leaves of the tree just look brown and lifeless. And the other fixture, which is going to cost more money, is going to have an LED of higher quality with what they call a higher CRI. So you're going to suddenly, green is really going to look green. It's, lighting has come so far that a lot of people don't remember a lot of really bad applications, thank goodness. But there was a time where, you would go through certain tunnels and it was like driving through a black and white movie. The lighting fixture looked orange, but when you looked at everything on like your skin or the color of the car, it was hard to discern because the color rendering of that light source was very, very poor. When LEDs first started out, it was very hard to get LEDs to make things look lively. I'll put it that way. Skin didn't look good. Apples didn't really look red. Green leaves didn't look green. But we've come a long way with that. There's no reason to settle for that. You can have I can see in these pictures from Nick, I mean, the flowers look pink, the leaves look green. That's very important. And these are subtle little issues in the specification that you have to discuss with whoever's planning your lighting or whoever's ever selling the lighting to you, that these are not overlooked. These are really critical elements. And that's true of course for indoor lighting, but outdoor lighting you could really mess up your garden and have a bunch of brown trees if you don't have the right LEDs.
It's not what we're looking for. Typically, I imagine. Giles, maybe you want to say something different, but I think we'll continue on. The next question I'm going to direct towards Giles, a little bit changing tracks, but are there different considerations for smaller spaces versus sprawling estates? What really is the priority? I know you touched on this when you first spoke, kind of about that task safety lighting. But if there's anything else, what are the biggest differences when you're designing, a large estate versus a smaller garden, specifically residential?
So if we get those two scales of project into our heads, a smaller residential project, let's call it like a downtown city block kind of postage stamp, versus like what I would call out here a ranch, or a ranch, as you say in America, a ranch. A ranch that has a long driveway and a gate at the front, and it's sort of a half-mile driveway to get to the main house. The rules are very, very similar still. Less is more. I've seen some horrific projects where people are illuminating either side of this. If we're looking at the sprawling estate, either side of the mile-long driveway is illuminated with sort of 3-foot tall posts that are lighting on every 10 feet. It just looks ghastly. It just looks tacky, to be quite honest. Mm-hmm. And so the rules, when you get to the point of thresholds, the threshold points being like a gate area versus getting to the entry of a house, are still the same. It's just on a smaller scale at a residential city urban scale, you can do much more multifunctionality. So instead of saying, I need to put in a step light, and I need to put in a wall sconce, and I need to flush the entry wall with additional can lights in the ceiling, you don't. There's a lot of, you can completely overdo it, and maybe all you need are the cans in the ceiling to illuminate not only the front door, but also the stairs that are nearby. So again, it goes back to the same idea as irrigation. It's a zoning thing. So you need to think about your zoning for each of these areas. Obviously, a zoning on a city postage stamp property is going to be a much smaller zone. You can maybe only have 3 or 4 zones of lighting. But when it comes to a sprawling estate, you're going to have to really plan ahead and provide power to maybe the gate or the sign at the address marker, which the fire department might need. You may need a strobe or something for the fire department to see where your property is. So running power out to the entrances and what I call these threshold moments is really important to plan in advance. So yeah, it's a very, very similar way to deal with it, but just probably different zoning. And Nick can probably talk to zoning better than I can when it comes to that. But yeah, those are the rules. Don't overdo it. Don't illuminate your mile-long driveway. Just at minimal at the threshold moments. I love to have these projects where you pull through the gate and you just see these. I'm very lucky. I live where I live with the high-end homes that we design, but you have like these warm, like the picture in the back there, warm glowing box is what your target is when you're driving in, and you've got bloody headlights on your cars, so there's no need to have lighting all the way down your driveway. I can consider it pretty tacky. But yeah, Nick, jump in, talk about zones for a sec.
A bit of the zoning is right. And to add to that, splashes of light is what I would call down a drive. So many folks take away the attention from the house itself when you're coming up an area like that and you're not focused on the end point. I want that to feel warm and inviting. There's the home, you're driving towards that, and light is just a way to get you there. To Giles' point, you try to avoid that runway effect. So many folks want to just stick a bunch of path lights all the way down their driveway. We address that with different challenges, much like this tree where you have a moonlight coming out of there, and we'll do a little splash along the drive or whatnot, just so they can see point A to point B. Your eye will do the rest. It's so funny how folks don't recognize how light affects the way you see things outside of just lighting something up, but they can be used to build walls and whatnot as well. When it comes to zoning, especially, that's getting bigger and bigger. With the explosion of the Wi-Fi controls and whatnot, folks want to be able to control more. I still say, for the most part, many folks end up wanting things to go on and off. But in a small space, specifically, like Giles was saying, you don't want to be a French fry under a cooker sitting there just being lit up. You're supposed to be enjoying that. You want to be able to look out into your landscape and see that, that backyard or the features that you made. And unfortunately, I think so many people overlight those personal areas that you can't really enjoy the rest of it.
Yeah, I think this falls into, it's a good segue into the next question I wanted to talk about, which is light pollution. This is obviously something that's a bit more on everybody's minds, and I think we're alluding to that in the conversation and saying don't overlight and be more intentional about lighting. What considerations do we need to account for to minimize light pollution? Diana, do you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah, well, in the commercial world, it's actually regulated. So, if you do you'll be told at the beginning of a project, if the town you need to comply with what we call dark sky requirements, which means lighting. If you picture a light fixture, anything that goes above 180 degrees can go up into the heavens. So that creates light pollution. So it becomes challenging, though, because it means almost all the light has to be directed downward. And that can make for looking up into fixtures that are a little bit glary, because again, the contrast between the dark sky and now this bright luminaire that's pushing all the light down can be tricky. So you have to look for a luminaire that controls the glare as it's being pushed to the ground. But it's a very important regulation. But when you push all the light down, you also have other issues, meaning now maybe people don't really know where the light is coming from or feel as safe because they don't see a column of light in the distance, or they can't discern the building because now the light's not really landing on the building as much anymore. It's only landing on the pavement. So it also creates challenges. But again, this can all be, managed and planned for. And like on our website, the Selux lighting website, we actually have a brochure on dark sky so people understand what it is. And we note on the spec sheets for each fixture which fixture complies with dark sky regulations, or how the fixture has to be outfitted so that it will comply with dark sky. And it's becoming more and more regulated all the time. So it's something, and I think, thankfully it's a good thing for the most part, but it makes it a little trickier sometimes for planning and for which fixtures. I mean, it can even apply to bollards. Like you could have a 3-foot fixture that again is throwing light spill up, and anything that throws light, not even deliberately lighting up, but anything that glows means that light can actually go up into the sky. That's going to create light pollution. So you have to know what codes or regulations you are governing your project.
Is there anything you want to add to that? Or Giles?
I think we owe it to this audience to say, why do we care about night skies? I think there's maybe people like, what? I don't care. I live in a city. I've never seen the stars. Why do I care? What does it really matter? And I think it does matter to us as a society, because I think the trend's been put into the wrong direction. and we've corrected it. You know, as a landscape architect, don't call me too much of a heat tree hugger, but night light really screws up insect, bird, wildlife, navigation systems, especially on coastal projects. You've heard all about how turtles get completely disorientated from artificial light. We owe it to the rest of the planet, not just the humans, to be pretty conservative with how we use lights and not confuse our cohabitants. And our circadian rhythms, if you live in a city and you don't have good blinds or lights, your circadian rhythm gets really screwed up as a human being even. So we owe it to ourselves and to our insects and and fellow inhabitants of this planet to not pollute the night sky with too much light. So I just thought, I thought I'd just throw that in, because it's like, why do I care? I've always lived in a city, and I've never seen the stars, but that's the wrong trend in the wrong direction.
It's
Yeah,
a great
that's a great
point.
point.
It's a great point. And, you know, actually at Selux, which is really a German-owned company, already in Germany and a lot of towns in Europe, we're making outdoor fixtures that can go. This is the beauty of LED and technology. When no one is outside in the plaza, the lighting can go to, let's say, red. That red light is not harmful to insects reproducing or most animals. Because you're so right, Gyles. I mean, here I just live in a suburb outside of New York City. I cannot believe what goes on in my yard at night. There's a world of creatures that I had no idea existed. You know, fox, skunk, raccoon. I mean, and this is not even the insect world. This is just the animal world. So absolutely, we do need darkness. And with this ability to be able to light everything, we have to be responsible and realize, you know, and even if you do light your garden, maybe those lights go off after midnight. You know, do they need to be on all night long? But it is something more manufacturers now we're looking at different wavelengths of light to see what can maybe stay on that doesn't interfere with insects reproducing. I mean, when we do jobs along coast, like in Florida, we absolutely have to go to very amber colored light. That's regulated. But there's the technology that maybe that's only a few weeks of the year. Maybe the rest of the time the light can come back up to a full white spectrum. So this technology is going to be able to help us a lot here. But again, yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, I think what we're all saying is, you know, you have to make a lot of decisions when you get into exterior lighting, a lot of decisions. Just like into it, it's like you don't just throw up one light and you're done with it. There's a big impact all the way around.
A lot of considerations, yeah, and different ones from indoor, which we're only, you know, starting to get a full understanding of, I think. Nick, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that. For those folks on here that are designers or installers, again, you're going to continue to hear us keep saying to less is more, less is more. You're not going to get away from the accent lights that are going up on the facade here to the left or some of the ornamentals. But what I see many folks do is not pick the right fixture for the right plant or the right tree, making sure that wattage is for that tree. Maybe it's dimmable. Many companies I'll see, instead of putting one fixture on a tree, they'll put three around it or whatnot, and minimizing the fixture counts all the way down. One of the big culprits, and we might get into this a little bit with the trends, is this new roof line tape lighting that you're seeing everywhere, which is just absolutely obnoxious, where color changes and whatnot. And you can see it being used more effectively in the commercial space, but here in Illinois, they are doing it all over the place. And they're eyesores, they're complete eyesores. One way you can control that, like we said, perhaps having those lights go off a little bit earlier, or having that conversation with them to see where they need to get through at the night. We'll do a lot of security circuits. It used to be that one. Back in the day, we were doing mercury vapor installations, and that was essentially it. But we're gone from the mercury vapor days and the metal halide days and the sodium fixtures that were so much more powerful that were causing a lot of this. But I may just leave a few lights on at night, especially the moon lights where you can get from the front to the back. They still feel comfortable, but you're not overwhelming the insects or the plants because LED's done a lot for us, getting us away from the high temperatures. You'd get a lot of that scorch on the evergreens because someone wouldn't come and move the fixtures back and you'd burn the trees almost because of how hot the fixtures were. But LEDs at least brought the temperatures down a bit. The actual heat of the fixture, which I think has helped out a bit when it comes to the insects specifically.
You brought up the trends. Let's skip to that one. We're running a little tight on time, so I'll ask people to be a bit more concise, but I do think it's something that people want to hear about. What do you think we're going to see more of in 2025? Nick, if you want to start that one off.
I think, I think the kitchen revolution is still in full swing right now. I think folks are definitely paying attention more to the outdoor kitchen space and being able to use that as a second extension of their home. That's one of the good trends. I love those areas. People are able to make themselves a little more unique out there, and whether they want the rotisserie or the smoker or whatever they want. I like that trend. You'll see a lot of sport courts now as pickleball is blown up, and especially in the Midwest of Illinois here. We're seeing a lot of sport courts being installed, so handling that the proper way. And then I would just say on the bad end again, this roof line lighting. I apologize to everybody on this call just because I said this. I am sure you're going to get 10 Facebook ads today for companies that supply roof line lighting. But that is one of those things that is just going insane by us right now. And Nightlight is just trying to stay away from that as much as we can for sure.
Right. Thanks, Nick. And just so everybody knows, I promise I didn't pay him to talk about outdoor kitchens. This was completely natural, organic.
The check goes in my
Diana, do you
name,
want
actually. My name, not Nightlight.
Yeah, perfect. Diana, do you want to go ahead with what you think we'll see more of?
Yeah, I mean, ever since COVID, I think a lot of corporations realized, or I should just say workplaces realized that being outdoors wasn't such a bad thing. So we're seeing more companies lighting their roof decks or maybe the top of their garage, turning these into outdoor spaces so that it becomes something where they want to light them at night. And we're also seeing that in cities, a lot of abandoned, I would call throwaway spaces, like the underside of a railway or the underside of a highway, are being reclaimed as parks. I mean, I think that's also come about a little bit because of the success in New York City of something called the High Line, how much people have loved the High Line. So I think everybody learned from that. It's nice to have these outdoor spaces. So the challenge now is how do we make them, safe and enticing as an environment that people want to be in. The other thing is what we were touching on is this protecting wildlife at night. That is definitely not only becoming a trend, I think you'll start to see legislation for it. And again, so that is going to be something we're going to become, I think, much more aware of what wavelengths of light, interfere with insects and animal reproduction or animals just feeding at night. And thirdly, solar. Solar is still something many people want to take advantage of. They don't want to run wires. They want to power the fixture from solar collecting cells. It's just still challenging. It's still not a perfect science and it's still expensive, but it is something that is definitely coming on stronger and stronger as solar powered outdoor fixtures. And I guess
Even
with
the
that,
transformers, Diana, I see a lot of that now. Is this at least the solar powered transformer, and then you can still wire the fixtures like you would typically do, but you'll see a lot more of that popping up. We've been working with some manufacturers where just the transformer itself for the LV
that would be
can be
great.
solar powered.
Yeah. The problem is sometimes with outdoor is that they're worried about codes. So for example, like we're working on a train station and they really, really wanted to use solar, but then they have to have a guarantee that it will never go below a certain level, even if there's 10 days of rain and clouds so a lot of times too, we're being asked about hybrid systems. Can we run wiring for when there is no sun for 5 days, because it's a liability issue, frankly, for owners, right? Or for public facilities. They have to know that they have a certain level. And the batteries sometimes that run these solar systems you know, they're still very big, but you know, we're getting there. It's like everything else. It's going to get better. And
Sure.
yeah.
Gyles, do you want to go? Do you want to go next? What do you think we're going to see more of in 2025?
Well, just from an industry standpoint, we're seeing an explosion of people wanting cold plunges and saunas, which is something to put on the list. I think it's part of the checklist now, on top of hot tubs and swimming pools. But people's well-being, there seems to be a buy stock in whoever has prepackaged cold plunge systems, because they seem to be flying off the shelf. And I'm really excited to see a lot more intelligence coming into our industry as well. So irrigation systems, I brought irrigation systems up a lot, but water is very precious to us out here in the West. So only irrigating when the soil really needs it, not when the blades of grasses need it. And so there's a lot of AI technology that's going into soil sensors, and I'm excited to see how that pops out from a water conservation perspective. And I think the same is reflected in the lighting industry. I hope that AI can help understand, say, usage patterns. So if someone's walking through a plaza, it's a bit like when you today go into a grocery store late at night and the lights only turn on for the milk section or the refrigerated section. It's going to be hopefully similar than that, but never compromising safety. And to echo what you guys have said about the solar industry, I've been extremely disappointed with, from a residential scale, what solar innovation has happened. And with the solar cells getting thinner and thinner to the point of being like a piece of acetate, a wafer thin piece of acetate, there's nothing to say that in the future years that can't be applied to any number of materials, which I'm hoping that we're not just throwing these old light fixtures away into the landfill, and there's a way that we can recycle some of these metals and not just have this infinite thought that these materials are never going to be exhausted. So, hey, I've got a bunch of 80s nasty looking lights. There should be a place to take those, because those materials are good and they could be recycled and rebuilt into something else. But there just doesn't seem to be anyone at this point willing to throw up a hand to do that. So I'm hoping those are the things I see in this year.
Right.
I guess
Again, we're getting close. Oh,
I was-
yeah. Did you want to add something?
just one last quick thing. I would say also the miniaturization of everything. It used to be that we needed big fixtures because we had big lamps, big metal halide lamps and so forth. And now with LED, it seems like the fixtures can keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and more less obtrusive and do what they need to do. So this is a trend, indoors and out, just much more minimal and streamlined fixtures.
Perfect. And to end it, just in one sentence or a couple of words, what is your favorite outdoor lighting feature right now? Diana, do you want to start? Do you have one?
Favorite outdoor feature?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand. Like,
I thought it was fixture. What's your favorite lighting fixture, or was that not what I?
Yeah. We
Oh,
can do fixture, specifically fixture.
I don't know. That's a tough one. And I don't think I ever have a favorite fixture. To me, it's where light lands. So, I do love to see trees uplit. I think it's a very nice effect. I like to see paths lit a certain way at a lower level. I like sometimes that the house is lit and the house becomes the lantern that lights the landscape. And when it comes to commercial spaces, I don't know, that's tougher because sometimes the experience it's less of mood and it's just more practical. But I don't know, actually, that's a tough question about a favorite. I have to think about.
That's okay.
There are beautiful jobs out there for sure, but I just can't think of all of them.
That's it. There's so many options. Sometimes it's too hard to choose. Nick, do you have anything that you want to add, or is there anything that stands out to you that you want people to know about?
Oh, I would stick with, and I'm going to stick with some of the features, but just the applications for the hardscape spaces nowadays, the fire pits and all that, those are all becoming more and more prevalent. They're almost on every landscape design that I see is some option for a fire pit or whatnot. So making sure those are taken care of and those areas are addressed because that's where folks are going to spend their most time.
Yeah. Gyles, do you have anything?
I'm going to go with my favorite light fixture, which embodies simple elegance down to the T, and I've used it for the last 15 years. It's a company out of New Zealand called Hunza, Hunza, and they have an absolutely beautiful fixture called the Twig Light, and it is just, it personifies everything I think about when it comes to beautiful, elegant, simple lighting. It's just a wonderful fixture.
All right. Well, that wraps up the question portion. We did go a little bit long. On the screen here, you'll see that we do have the websites for each of the different panelists. So if you want to take that down, if there's any, anything that you want to look up, feel free to look that up. I've included my email address here as well. So if you have any direct questions that you think of after, if you want any additional information about any of the panelists, please feel free to reach out to me. But we do have just over 5 minutes left for questions. So if anybody has any questions, please do pop them in the chat. And see if we have it.
Looks like we've got one follow-up question from Michael here, McGowan. He's just asking about mixing color temperatures inside the landscape. Yes, Michael, most of those pictures that you've seen from Nightlight have some combination of color. The real tricky part is when you get towards the facade of the house itself, because for us, again, I like to warm up the facade a bit, subtly warm it up. But the trees, those plantings, those red buds or the magnolias in my area that they're planting up near there, we usually like to get a little bit of a cleaner, neutral color to them. There's some balance that you have to take into account for, because you put that natural light next to that warm light, it's going to look cool, and you really have to play with those things. But we do a combination of color tones, and feel free, Michael or anyone else, I'm in this to make everyone better at this myself. I wake up to be significant. I know if I make your lives easier, it'll come back to me. So feel free to reach out to me with any additional questions if you come up with one after this.
Nick. Does anybody else have any questions? That's the only one that I'm seeing in the chat right now. Feel free to pop it in. For any of the panelists, if you have any final remarks that you would like to add, now might be the time for that too, while we're waiting for questions to come in. If you don't, that's also okay. No, all good. I mean, we covered a lot. There was a lot to go through, and hopefully everybody came away with something out of this. I know that I certainly did. We will have another design dialogue section next month. So we're back to monthly design dialogue sessions. We skipped out on December just because we know it's a busy time of the year. So next month, we're going to be doing what we're calling lessons or learned experience. And basically, it's just, we're going to go through some case studies of applications that we have come across in outdoor kitchen design and some of the unique ways that we've had to get around that. So you're getting to learn from our many years of experience here at Urban Bonfire in Kalamazoo, and we'll go through specific projects. So hopefully we can get some good information out from that. I'll give people one more chance to add any questions or any comments in the chat. If not, we'll let everybody go just a couple minutes early. Thank you again to the panelists, Nick, Diana, and Gyles. This was great. I really appreciate you taking the time. And again, I hope everybody came away with a new learning today.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley, for putting this together.
Yes, thank
Pleasure.
you. Thanks, Ashley.
Thanks. All right, no questions. So we'll end it here. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Stay warm out there, those of you that need to.
Thanks, guys.